For step 3, we'll go ahead and administer all the things we need to do for the Beamable setup for the store. So let's start with the toolbox. Here we are in an empty scene. I will drag out the store flow. I'm going to go ahead and run the scene and see what we get out of the box. Here with the scene running, we see we have some UI that is ready to display a store, but there's obviously no store set up yet. So let's go ahead, set up the things we need in the Beamable Content Manager, and return to this to see the end result. Within the Content Manager, we'll be organizing a store within our game, a listing within the store, and then we'll relate the SKU and the item itself. So that if we want to display a sword, we're going to have a sword item relating to a sword SKU that's within the listing and the store for our game. Let's take a look at that. Let's open up the Beamable Content Manager to get started. From here within the toolbox, we can open up Content. We see all the different content objects that are available. Now, because we're starting in an empty project, we don't have much here. We can see the content types listed along the left, but we can create individual items of those types as we need. So again, let's start from the reverse, the simplest part of our structure that we talked about. We'll create the items. So inside the item, we'll create the sword. You can give them any name you want, but for the purpose of ease and illustration here, I'll name the sword item 01. Then we need a SKU. This represents that item within the store's context. So I'll call that the sword SKU 01. Then we're going to need a listing. The listing is the grouping of the SKUs within the store itself. So let's create a listing content. This is going to be a store that has not just the swords, but maybe weapons in general. So I'll call it a weapons listing. And then we're going to need our store. The store itself here, we'll just call this store 01. Now, I'm going to open up the inspector at the same time here, so that as I click through each of the items that we've created, we can see some more information about it inside the inspector. So first of all, we'll just call our store simply store, and we'll add in one listing. The listing will relate to our weapons listing. Now let's go over each of the objects that we've created and look at the inspector. So from the lowest level again, we have the sword item. The sword item, we're able to assign a different icon for it for the sword. Now I have one prepared, so let's go ahead and bring that in from my desktop. Here I have a knife and a sword icon. I'll bring them into the project. Now that we've got those sprite icons in the project with addressable, we can choose them here. So I'll be choosing my sword for the icon, and I'll give it some permissions. Then we have the SKU. The SKU here relates to the sword itself inside the store. And here's where, after completing your platform registration steps, you'd want to put in the product IDs there from those platforms. For now, we'll just skip that step. The item and the SKU belong to the listing itself. So here in the listing, we'll be able to set some values here. First, the price of this is going to be currency. And the symbol we're going to use is going to be the currency gems. And we'll have it be 1 gem for buying one of the swords. When you make that transaction, it's going to give you one item back, and that's going to be an items.sword item 01. This means that inside the store, the end player who's playing your game would be able to purchase one of these swords for the cost of 1 gem, and you'd be able to tweak those values for whatever the purpose of your game design is. Each time we make a significant change here, we want to go to publish the content in the Content Manager. That's going to run a validator to make sure that the item values that you've chosen in the inspector are going to agree with what the expectations of the system are. You can fix any of those issues if they pop up. Here I don't have any issues, so I'm ready to go ahead and publish. Now that we've got that published, there's one more thing that we need to do. From within the toolbox, we're going to go to the Config Manager. The Config Manager brings up Unity's project settings, and there's a dedicated Beamable section here. We visit the shop, and we just want to make sure that our store size is 1, and then we have it set to that store 01 item that we've created already. With that set up, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and run the scene. There you go, you see the result. I repeated the same steps for the sword to also put a knife in the store. Here you can see the user is able to purchase them for a specific price and be able to use them in the game. That's it.